Trying this once more. I've got some issues with some of the streaming. Sorry for the hiccups, and hope hopefully you'll be joining again soon. Getting back on the program. Um, Gosh, I'm sorry about the hiccups there. I think I had one of the streams incorrectly set up. Thanks for joining, and if you're joining for the first time, please let me know. If you're joining or returning from one of the previous sessions, I'd love to hear your feedback and see see how things are going so far. If you're enjoying the sessions, or if you're enjoying today's session, if you're joining for the first time, um, thanks so much for being on with me. Um, Good to see you, Christian, and thanks for joining, Kara. Um, and watching live from Botswana for the first time. That is awesome. And also first time from Manahar. Um, well, for those of you who are just joining for the first time, what we've been doing over the past several sessions of these streams is building a desktop application using Electron. Electron is a JavaScript-based approach for building desktop apps that uses a combination of Node.js and Chromium, which is the UI portion of Google Chrome, to produce a desktop app that uses HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And anything that you can use with Node.js or use in the browser, you can use to build a desktop app. It's a very flexible tool, and it has improved tremendously over the years. And if you use apps like Visual Studio Code, which I use pretty much every day, if you use the desktop version of Slack, if you use GitHub Desktop, and there's many others, those are all built with Electron. And I think it's a pretty cool stack of technology. And I've been building this teleprompter app, and to give you an idea of what a teleprompter app is, I am talking to my camera. And I'm able to make eye contact right through the camera lens that I'm looking at. And the reason I can do that is because I have a screen that is mirrored right in front of the camera. So I can see me, or I can see the person that I'm talking to, and still be able to make eye contact through the camera. And a teleprompter app is one that displays text or a script up on the screen, so that if I'm, say, recording a tutorial, or I'm recording a podcast or an interview, or any number of cases where I may be presenting or doing some type of streaming or recording, I can have a script up on the screen that helps me to know where I am and what things that I want to say. And to give you an idea, this is a different camera angle of my setup here in my home office. You see I've got my laptop sitting right here, and my laptop screen is mirrored onto an iPad that's sitting in front of this special type of mirror glass that reflects whatever is below here. And so the application I have that we're building will display a script so that I can still continue to make eye contact with the camera, and you as a viewer will don't see that. The type of glass is called beam splitter, and I don't know how it works. It's kind of magical. but it's been around for for a long time. People have been using it. Public speakers, politicians, uh, TV hosts, news anchors, TV news. They all use teleprompters to be able to read directly what's in front of them and still be able to make eye contact with the camera. So, um, just to show you what this application looks like, I've got my Visual Studio Code up here. And if you want to follow along, there is the source code for all of this is on my GitHub repository. If you go to github.com/reverentgeek/electron-teleprompter, let me turn on my handy dandy um, picture in picture here. You can go and grab this source code, and in a nutshell, the instructions on how to set it up on your machine are in the README on this repository. But in a nutshell, you need to have Node.js installed, which there's lots of different ways you can do that, but nodejs.org is the website where you can go and find instructions on how to download that and install it. And you'll need the source code, and you'll run npm install to install the dependencies once you have the source code. And then let me bring up my terminal. You can use npm start, the command npm start, to launch the application. And I'm going to hide these other screens so that you can see this is the application. So it's a transparent or translucent window that gives me text, whatever script I may have that I want to work with, and be able to scroll through this text as I'm speaking or presenting. And the thing that we worked on last week was adding support for keyboard and clicker support. So a handheld clicker where you can advance to the next section and back. So if I use my keyboard, you can see I can jump from the top to point 2 to point 3 and be able to go back as well. So pretty cool stuff. Now, what we want to do today, what I have planned for us to look at today, now that we have the advancement of using a clicker and a keyboard, I want to add the ability to open any Markdown file and use that as a script. So the way the application works today is there is a let me turn off this caption at the bottom. And I'll move my video down to the other corner. Now, the way the application works today is there's a Markdown file inside the project that you can edit with Visual Studio Code and launch the application. It will load that script. I'll show you that now. So that inside the client folder, there's a file named content.md, and I could edit this text file. It uses Markdown syntax. If you're not familiar with Markdown, it's a very simple syntax that uses hashtags to denote headings and just use text bullet lists and so forth. And the Markdown gets converted to HTML to be displayed in the app. So if I change this to hey y'all, and I run the application again, or if I just refresh the application using Command R or Control R, if you're on Windows, you see that the text now says, "Hey, y'all." And I can move this screen around. If I close the application, then it will remember where the screen was when I last left it, and will remember the position and the size of the window. We walked through building that feature in several streams ago, if you want to go back and look at that. But what we want to do today is I want to move away from having the content file, the Markdown file for the script embedded in the application, and allow any user who is using this application to open any Markdown file that's on their computer to use as a script. That way you could have multiple versions of a script. You could have, 3 different presentations, and be able to load each one as you need them. And the way we're going to do that is through building some menus for our desktop application and adding some hotkey support. So like it's common on across all the operating systems that have something like Command O or Control F or something like that to open a file to load that into your application. And I'm going to load up documentation for Electron. Bring that over here. The documentation for Electron is really good. I've always been impressed with how well they've documented the API and have lots of examples. So under examples, I was looking for this earlier to see what's been added and what's changed. But there are, I thought it was under examples. There's menus in here somewhere. Let me keep digging. Or may just need to search. Menu. So there's the menu process, but I also so this is the API for the menu. What I found earlier was an actual example. I guess this is it. I thought there was a separate document that they had created on. It's kind of like a tutorial, but it's actually in the API documentation. So here's an example of how to create a menu for an Electron application. So bringing in the Electron library and getting the app in the menu. And in this case, in a lot of cases with Electron, you have one API that just works across every operating system, and you don't have to really think or worry about how is this going to appear on Mac or Windows or Linux. But there's enough differences between what is customary for a Mac application versus a Windows or Linux application that menus specifically, they're require some attention to detail to make them look more like what people are used to seeing. And so there's some conditional logic in this example, and will be in our code as well, that if we're running on Mac, which the name of the platform is called Darwin. So if we're running under Darwin, then we're going to have some different menus than what are going to appear on Windows or Linux, which is interesting. So I'm going to copy this existing code because this has like a lot of standard stuff that every application should have. And to give you an idea, at least on Mac OS, when I run this application, npm start, there's some menus up here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a menu called Electron, and there's, you know, things in here like services and hide others, show all. There's a file menu that just has a close window, an edit, a view, a window, and a help. Some of these, you know, a lot of these are standard across every application that you would probably find running on a Mac OS computer. And so these are kind of given out of the box. When Electron was first introduced as open source, it didn't create any menus by default. And so it was kind of strange. You'd have your application running and there would be no menus, no standard menus. So you had to build it all from scratch. So that is generated when there's no menu specified. But if we create our own menu, then we also have to like do all of that. So I think all that boilerplate kind of stuff is in that script that I just opened. So the interesting thing is that, as I've explained in other streams, an Electron application is comprised of two distinct parts. There's the main process, which is kind of the Node.js world. And then there is one or more renderers, which are the instances of the browser or the instances of Chromium that are providing the UI. So main process is where the application begins. It's what bootstraps the application and then creates one or more windows to display to the person who is using the application. So there's some code that lives in the main process, and there's some code that lives with the front end or the UI. In the case of menus are kind of, you could think of them as global to the application. So they are managed, they're created and managed at the main process level. So they're defined separate from the windows that may appear. Now, each window could then, you know, enhance the menu experience by adding other items or using context menus or something like that. But the ownership of the menu is the main process. So we're going to extend main to include building the menus that we need. And specifically, all of this is going towards, we need a file open menu so that we can show a dialog box that will allow someone to find a file on their computer to open and launch, load that script into the teleprompter. All right. So I copied this text earlier. I'm going to do it again just in case. Thanks for the nice compliments and encouragement. I appreciate it. If you have any questions along the way, I'll try to. I'm watching the chat to see if there's anything that pops up that you need some clarification with. I'm going to create alongside this main.js, which is the starting point for the application. I'm going to create not a new folder. Whoops. I'm going to create a new file and call it menus.js. And for now, I'm just going to paste the code that we lifted from the Electron documentation. And I'm getting all these red squiggly lines because my own Eslint settings. So Eslint is, if you're a JavaScript developer, is your best friend. It's the first thing that I install whenever I start a new JavaScript project of any kind, whether it's a browser-based or Electron-based or Node project. I'm going to install Eslint, and then I'm going to install my personal rules, Eslint rules, which I have published under Eslint config Reverent Geek. So I've got those installed as dependencies for the project. And when you're working with Node.js, this is kind of off the subject, but useStrict is not enabled by default when you're using standard common JS code inside Node. And having strict mode explicitly turned on is a good thing. It's just another one of those things that can help you to have a better time with JavaScript. Now, the new ES module syntax that uses like imports, exports, and that you may find if you're building with say a transpiler like Babel or a system like Webpack that creates bundles that does the transpiling for you. It's either going, so imports and exports ES modules has strict mode turned on by default, and any of the modern transpilers today will add the use strict automatically to every transpiled JavaScript file that it creates. So, a lot of times us as developers, we don't have to think about it, but since we're not using a transpiler, we're not using a bundler with Electron or building Node.js apps, we have to use strict. So I'm going to turn this this code that is here into a module that I can call from main.js. And I'm going to say this is a module.exports, which is the magic keywords that Node.js needs to see to be able to use a module outside of this file. So we need to export some kind of interface, and I'm going to export a function. And this function is going to take, instead of requiring app here from Electron, let me think about this. I know I want a function that I can call. And these are not instance specific, so I don't have to pass them in. I can create those right here if I want to. But I do want to have a function like let's call it build menus. And then module.exports is going to be an object with build menus as one of the properties. So inside build menus, I'm going to take all this code that was from that example and paste it into here. And for now, I'm just going to comment out all of this because I want you to see how, start with something small so you can see how it works. So a menu template is an array. It's an array of objects that describe what menu items that the menu system for Electron is going to build. And the nice thing is we can declare this template in a OS or operating system agnostic way. And Electron does all the work of knowing how to build the menus on each operating system so that we don't have to worry about that. So whether this app runs on Mac or Windows or Linux, under the covers, inside the Electron API, it knows how to create the menus on each of those operating systems. And we can supply just one template that'll run on every OS. So I'm going to create one top level menu, and let's see. I want a file menu. So we're going to not use role. We're going to say label is file. And the file menu is going to have a submenu that is an array of items. And under here, we're going to have an array of objects. The first one will have a label of open, and the second will have a label of it'd be quit, but Electron has this new system. If you see the syntax through here, you see all these that are labeled roles. These are kind of abstract concepts that Electron knows how to create an app menu across every, like in this case, Electron knows how to create an app menu for every operating system. It knows how to create an about menu for every operating system, and knows how to add logic in to display an about window. So if we use a say an edit menu role, then it will give us the operating system standard for cut, copy, paste, and all those other options. So I'm going to use role quit and that's it. So when we run this, we should see the only menu we should see is the file menu with two options, open and quit. Open doesn't do anything right now because we don't have anything with that. So if we run npm start, oh, you know what? This doesn't work yet because we created this text file, menus.js, but we're not actually using it yet inside main. So in main, say menus equals require menus. So no JS syntax. We don't have to include the .js extension like that when we're using common JS. Node just automatically knows that it should look for a file with a .js extension, so we can have a little bit shorter syntax. We pull in the menus, and then when ready, it doesn't really matter where we do this, but sometime I want to do it before I create the actual window. So when the app is ready, I want to call menus.build menus. Okay. Now let's run the app. And interesting, I don't know if you can see that too well, but we have a menu labeled Electron, and there's an open and quit. And you see that there's a menu command keyboard shortcut, Command Q, that allows us to quit the application because that was part of the role. Okay, question from Raven. It's a key value kind of skeleton. So yes, in the template for the menu, it's an array of objects, and those objects can have submenus, which also are arrays. And yes, each object is going to be like a key value pair of properties to describe how to create that menu. Let's see if there's some more examples down here. Yeah, so here's an example down here with under the help. There's a label, learn more, and there's a click event associated with clicking on this label that launches the default handler for a URL. So if like your default browser on your computer is Chrome, then it would clicking on the learn more would launch a Chrome if it's not already open, and it would create a new browser tab and go to that URL. In our case, we do want to have a click event for the file open and be able to display file open dialog. But I wonder why it's creating a label with the name, at least on the Mac. I'm gonna try this. I'm gonna put roll app menu. It's in the wrong spot. I need to add it to the array. Okay, so I've got a roll app menu and then a file menu. Let's see if this works. npm start. Okay, so that looks better. We got the Electron just knows how to create this menu. It's kind of like a standard menu for all Mac applications. And then there's a file open and quit. So if I click on open, it doesn't do anything. But that's where we want something to happen there. Electron.js file open dialog. So there's a dialog API that allows us to show a standard dialog for opening files. And this, again, this is one API that we use in Electron application, and it just knows how to do this on every operating system. So you get a native experience on Windows, Linux, and Mac. The browser window is optional. Which we kind of need to know. We do need to know what browser window to load our script into. Let's just try the dialog first to see if we can get it to work. So here's label open. We need a click handler, which is, we'll say it's a Lambda function. And we need the dialog API off of the Electron framework. And we'll use dialog dot show open dialog. And this will be we've got lots of options. Got a title, default path, button label, filters, properties. Open file. Okay, so let's start with properties. This takes an object. Properties is an array. And we're only opening a file. Oh, and you see how in the documentation, some of these are labeled Mac OS. They got like tags on them. So in the case of create directory, I think what the tag Mac OS means is that this is only a property available for Mac OS. Prompt to create is only available for Windows. I think you can still include those in your code. It's just, the behavior will be different across the different operating systems. So at the end, it's going to return an array of strings or undefined. If the dialog is canceled, it returns undefined. So I'm using the show open dialog, which is a promise based or async based. So we're going to declare this as an async function. We're going to await on that to get the name of the file, and we'll say if file console log the file else console log user cancel. And this may be enough for now. The open file needs to filter, I guess, for markdown files, but let's see what this does. I'm going to quit the application and run it again. So now we click on File Open. Hey, we get an open. It opened up in Documents by default. Is interesting. And let's say I could open up this markdown file. Let's go to source client content.markdown. That's the name of the file that we're currently using today. And I click open. Then written to the dialog, canceled is false. Oh, that's cool. They must have changed their API some. So now we get, it's not an array. It's actually an object that's returned that has canceled false and file paths as the as the result. So the Electron documentation is out of date. we should file an issue with their documentation. But this is cool. This gives us something to work with. So I'll copy and paste this into the code here. So that we have an example to look at. And we'll say, instead of file, let's call it results. And we'll say if results dot canceled the file is results dot, let's see, let's call it script file is results dot file paths 0. And let's see what happens now. npm start file open. It remembered where I last looked. That's good. Kind of. Content.markdown. And we got this, the file is, and the path to the markdown file. Very cool. So now at this point, we could reuse our code. I think maybe we refactor our code that we have right now. It's in somewhere in the client. So we need to refactor that code out and either move it into here or move it into a separate module so that we can call it from here. So we can load that script file, convert the Markdown to HTML, and then communicate that to the browser window. So that raises a very interesting thing. Right now we're all working on inside the main process, which is separate from any browser window that we may have open. In browser window, meaning the Electron terminology is called renderers. Each window is called an instance of a renderer. And the API for that is called browser window. So if we look in our main.js, we create a new browser window and load that right now. As soon as the browser window is created, we go and read the content.markdown file and display that. So what we need to do is change that logic so that maybe the first window that comes up is this content area. It says, "Hey y'all, how's it going?" Let's change this to Electron teleprompter. Please use the file open menu or keyboard shortcut, which we haven't done yet. We need to add that, or keyboard shortcut to open a Markdown file as a script. I think, yeah, we've got all this in the preload right now. Okay, I'm jumping ahead. I'm running down a rabbit trail already. Where I was headed with this is we've got the menu system and everything is in the main.js, and the displaying the script is going to be in the browser window. We need to communicate from main.js to the browser window. Hey, here's the new contents to load as the script. And the way that we're going to do that, the way that we need to do that, is through IPC. We talked about this in one of the earliest streams as we were starting to build the Electron application, but Electron uses IPC, which stands for Inter-Process Communications, to send messages from one side of the house to the other. So if we need to, if we're in the browser window, for example, and we need the main process to do something for us, like show a dialog, a system dialog, which is only available in the main process, then we send a message from the browser window over IPC to the main process to do that. And IPC is a fairly common pattern of like publish, subscribe. You may have heard that term before in building other applications, or reading about different architectures or how applications are built. But we have an example of this in the main.js right now, that IPC main, it's listening for messages sent to a channel named error-messages. So if it receives a communication to this channel, it just logs that to the event, logs that to the console. In a similar way, when we are finished in our menu, we have our file here. I'm going to remove this comment. So we have our script file. We need to open that file, read its contents, convert that Markdown syntax to HTML, and then we need to use IPC to send that to the browser window to say, here's the content that you need to load. So in order to do that, we need to know the browser window to send this message to. So in our build menus, we need to take in a the browser window that we are loading or creating inside main.js. The create window. Here's our window here. So we're going to move menus.build menus into this create window function. And we're going to pass it the window. Let's call it browser window here. So we're passing in the browser window, and I know one of the overloads. So the browser window argument allows the dialog to attach itself to a parent window, making it modal. And this is a good thing. So if we pass the browser window to this show open dialog, that means the experience of the app is that they can't do anything with that window or the original script window until they have satisfied either opened a file or canceled the file open dialog. So we're going to pass that in. Let's see that in action. npm start. File open. And so now this file open dialog is sitting on top of the I mean, it's really sitting on top of the window. I can't move the maybe this is just a Mac OS thing. I can't move the dialog itself, but I can move the window, and it moves the file open dialog at the same time. But I can't do anything else with the underlying script. I'm going to hit cancel, and we got user cancel down here, which is good. By the way, this is another rabbit trail off the topic, but you see these error messages that are coming up every time I run npm start? Class web swap CGL layer is implemented in both blah, 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 blah. All right. So this error message has been coming up every single time since we started streaming and working on this project together. And I've never addressed it. You know, I've always just ignored it because I've been seeing it for a long time, but I didn't really know what it was. So I went and researched it earlier today, and turns out there's some kind of obscure issue between Chrome and Mac and things that are going on. I don't think this error message is going to show up on Windows or Linux, but today this error message has been showing up on Macs for a long time, and basically you can ignore it. But I think a fix has been in the works for 2 years now, and it's still there. The issue is still there. But just so you know, don't worry about it. If you're running on Mac and you're seeing this error. Okay, we're almost up on time. Before we leave though, see if we can find out real quick how to create a shortcut for our menu. So browser, we've got menu. Where's the API stuff? Thought it was here. Oh, there. Menu. And let me just search for it. Menu, Electron.js menu shortcut. Keyboard shortcuts. This feature allows you to configure local and global keyboard shortcuts for your Electron application. Local shortcuts, you need to specify an accelerator property when creating a menu item within the menu module. So, in addition to the role or label and click, we've got an accelerator. And again, this is Mac OS specific, whether it uses, some of these are Command I's or Alt Command, shifts, different things across different systems. So we're going to come over here to our code. We got a label of open. Add an accelerator property. And it's basically just a string that is a keyboard shortcut. So there's some specific letters. Let's just say Command F. I don't know if that, or Command O for open. And let's run that. Yeah. So if we look at open right now, it's got a Command O shortcut off to the side. And if I press Command O on my keyboard, it pops the file open dialog. So that's good. That was a quick win there. I'm going to close this application. We're going to commit what we've got so far. DS Store is showing up. Hey, we can update our gitignore file. None of that. has file open, menu, work in progress. Push that. So if you're following along and want to play around with any of that code, or if you want to as homework for next week, go ahead and jump ahead of the class, and so to speak, and see if you can figure out how to refactor the code to actually open and read the contents of the file and send that to the browser window. That would be cool. Any questions before we wrap things up, or any feedback from today's stream that you would like to share? I'd love to hear your feedback, good or bad, how things went today. Well, as always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I thank you for joining me on another All Hands on Tech Live with your host, David Neal, Reverent Geek. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week, and hope to see you again soon on the next stream. If you do have any questions or any kind of feedback or suggestions on what you would like to do with this project, any kind of features, we're going to try to wrap this up over the next couple of weeks, so that we can move on to another fun project that I've been thinking about. But if you can reach me on GitHub through the repository. Let me bring up that link again. On my repository, github.com/reverentgeek/electron-teleprompter. You can take a look at the code that's there. You can also submit any issues or enhancement suggestions or pull request if you want to go that route. You can find me on Twitter as Reverent Geek, Instagram, Reverent Geek. I'm Reverent Geek everywhere. You can email me, david@reverentgeek.com. I'd love to hear from you. Again, have an awesome day, and thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time on the next All Hands on Tech.